In this video, I'm going to be talking about the tibialis posterior muscle, and when we get dysfunction in this muscle, you might have heard it called PTTD, Posterior Tibialis Tendon Dysfunction, Tibialis Posterior Dysfunction, lots of different names for it, but actually what I want to be talking about today is what the muscle is, what it does, the three things that you need to be doing if you've got a problem with this muscle, and if you are doing things that aren't working, some of the things that you might need to just tweak about those exercises so that you can get the desired effect. So let's go. Thanks for checking out this video. My name's John. Thanks for joining us here. And today we are going to be talking about the tibialis posterior muscle. And this is a slightly more trickier muscle and a dysfunction if we develop it to resolve for a few key reasons. And I want to talk about that in this video today. But firstly, what is the muscle? Well, it's the tibialis posterior muscle, and if we know that posterior means the back, and we know that the tibia is the main leg bone, we know it's the muscle that sits on the back of this main leg bone. So what we term tibialis posterior, and really it lives within the calf complex, so the muscles on the back of the leg, and we have the gastrocnemius, the soleus, and then deeper to those muscles we have what we call the tibialis posterior, and that in itself provides some challenges about this muscle. Now, we can commonly get dysfunction in runners or long distance walkers or people that are doing lots of walking. And how does this pain manifest itself? Well, it's when we typically get pain around the inside of the foot, or particularly where the bony lump on the inside of our foot that we call the medial malleolus, when we start getting pain underneath that. Why is that happening? Well, the tendon of this muscle, so we have this muscle living on the back of the shin bone, and that muscle runs down and turns into a tendon that wraps around and under that medial malleolus to come and then attach into the inside of the foot. But this muscle does a lot of work. It's involved in some capacity in both the pronation and supination of the foot. What I mean by this is, as we're walking, when we initially look to plant our foot on the floor, the foot has to pronate to absorb shock, and the tibialis posterior has a role to play in this. It then supinates and straightens out to provide a rigid platform for us to step forward. So all in all, when we are walking, when we are running, we're using this muscle a lot. And so it can commonly turn into dysfunction, and this dysfunction we often term PTTD, Posterior Tibialis Tendon Dysfunction. But that's enough about what the muscle does. What I want to be telling you about is, if you've developed pain in this problem, the three things that you need to be doing in order to get rid of that pain. So what I'm going to do is take this onto the bed to show you in a little bit more detail. So the three things that I want to talk about is how we can release the muscle, how we can stretch the muscle, and how we can strengthen the muscle to cope with those demands of the walking, running, and things that you're looking to do. So the first thing we want to do is release the muscle, or self-massage in the area. Now, the reason that this muscle can be a little bit trickier is it's a little bit trickier to find. So the muscle lives on the back of our shin bone. But the problem that we have is we have this big gastrocnemius muscle in that area. So what we actually need to do is go deeper to that muscle in order to find it. So if we find our main shin bone and then we just drop off onto the inside of the leg. So I have my shin bone here, I drop off that border. Now, what I then want to do is almost be looking to reach behind that shin bone, and that's where you'll be able to palpate or feel some of that muscle in the area. Now, what you want to be looking to do is working through this area, and if you find a sore point, a particularly active trigger point in that area, we can just look to hold in this area. Now, what we might find is after 30 seconds to a minute, it starts to relax. It's a great time to then pin and stretch that. So what we can do here is we can hold that pressure on the sore point and then look to bring our toe up. And what you'll start to feel there is that a muscle actually stretching under that pressure. And so you'll feel the muscle moving. And this is what we call a pin and stretch technique. So you can spend a minute or two just working through that area, applying that pin and stretch technique to try to be loosening out that area. This is also a great one if you have a massage gun. This is a nice one to be really looking to work on the inside. Now, as I said, what we have to be careful of is we don't want the gun hitting the shin bone itself, but just dropping into the inside of that muscle there. Remember that this muscle makes its way down and wraps around the inside of the foot. So if we are particularly sore on that tendon, that medial malleolus that we have here, if we drop onto the inside of that, we can apply something like ice that will be helpful in that area for about 5 minutes. And that's how we can start to release the muscle that's sore. But what we want to really get onto is improving that muscle. So the next thing that we can look to do is we can look to stretch the muscle. So this is where we get into the realms of things that you might be doing to correct the problem, but why you might not be doing them exactly correct. You might be doing a calf stretch to try and release this area, but that will be stretching the gastrocnemius. You might also then be aware that you can bend the leg in the calf stretch to hit the soleus muscle. But I want to make a small tweak to your stretch in order to really catch the tibialis posterior. So in order to stretch my right tibialis posterior, I start by placing my right foot behind the left foot. Then what I'm looking to do is bend both knees, and I'll start to feel that stretch in the deep calf area. Now here's where the big tweak comes, so make sure we're paying attention. What we want to be doing at this point is taking the heel out to the side, so moving the heel at the back away and dropping the knee in. This will be really starting to elongate that tibialis posterior muscle. And this is the key note that we want to be making sure, because that's where we can be really capturing that stretch. We want to be holding that stretch for 30 seconds, 60 seconds, or even a minute and a half to really be getting a nice elongation of those tight muscle fibers. You want to be repeating this on both sides, and if you are particularly sore in one side rather than the other in terms of right to left, compare your right to left stretches, and that will give you some indication of how you could be working the best out of those stretches, because when they start to feel the same, you know you're making your advancements. Now my final tip is that we want to be strengthening the muscle. Now this is where our other tweak comes into play on top of things that you might be doing already. So you might be doing an exercise like a calf raise, which is a good thing to be doing. But what we want to do is try to get as much tibialis posterior involvement as we can. So you can take an object. Here you see that I've taken a football and placed that in between my ankle shin bones area. As I go through my calf raises, we will be having to hold that ball in place, which will involve extra recruitment of those tibialis posterior muscles. You might want to do about 3 sets of 12 repetitions of these exercises. And again, if you're feeling pain or you're feeling soreness, particularly around the inside of the foot, we know that you're not at that stage to be doing these exercises yet. Carry on with the earlier tips of the release work and the stretching work, and start to work at a reduced amount of repetitions until you can be doing them pain-free, or at least only about a 1 or 2 out of 10 pain, and then we can slowly progress back up as we go. I hope that that information has been helpful. It is a more complicated one due to the nature of its anatomy. It's a deeper muscle, it's heavily involved, but some of its bigger counterparts can be quite dominant. So what I want you to be doing is making those small tweaks. When we're working into the massage work, I see a lot of people who say I've been working into my calf muscles, stretching my calf muscles, and it's not making the improvements that I wanted to make. The reason for that is that it's simple. We need to be getting specifically onto the right muscle. So go deeper than the calf muscle. Go on the inside of that shin bone to be really targeting the area. When you're doing those stretches, a reminder that we want to be tweaking that back heel position and dropping the knee in to be really getting that tibialis posterior onto its maximum stretch. And finally, when we're doing the strength work, try to use an object like a ball, a pillow, or a cushion, something that you have to grip on to really make sure that we're activating those tibialis posterior ones. It is a common one. Don't confuse it with an Achilles tendonitis. Our Achilles tendon lives in the middle. If you're feeling that pain on the inside of the foot, that might be telling us that it's not quite an Achilles tendonitis, but more this tibialis tendon or tibialis posterior tendon that's causing us a problem. Has that been helpful for you? If it has, do me a favour and hit that like button, because that's going to help others suffering with that pain in the inside of their foot when they're out running like you might be, in order to see this video. And if you find this type of content helpful, where we're looking to help you to understand your body so that you can be removing those pains and achieving your sport and wellness goals, why not subscribe? Hit that subscribe button, hit the bell notification, and I'll be updating you when I drop the next video here. I'll see you on that video.